Before we continue with the video, if you like what I'm doing here on this channel, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel a lot. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Welcome. It is the first Tuesday of the month, and as always, that means we get a new rotation of free assets available on the Epic Marketplace. Today, for this month, we are being granted the Flexible Combat System Basic, City Environment Megapack 02, Dynamic Volumetric Sky, ScanLab's Interior Volume 1, and Countryside Windmills and Barns. You, of course, as always, find them under the Free tab, under Free for the month, if you want to find these options. In addition to that, under the Permanently Free collection, we are also granted usually one new asset per month, and this time we are getting the Stylized Asian Village, so we will be checking that out as well. So let's take a look at these assets. So here we are inside of the Stylized Asian Village, and this is of course the map where it displays all the assets in play. And I have to say, this is created by the same creator as last month brought us a Stylized Egypt pack. And I felt so about that one. However, this one, despite not really liking stylized graphics in general, I have to say that this looks fairly gorgeous, to be honest. It has a very nice feel to it. It looks very almost borderline anime. So it could probably be used together with something like that. I get a little bit of a airbender feel to it for some reason. And you can see that you can build essentially almost a palace out of these assets. So let's take a look at the overview map for this, so you can see what you're getting as it pertains to the specific assets. So here they are all lined up, and you can see that we have a bunch of groupings when it comes to the different roofs, and then you can see the different walls and towers that we have available in different styles, different patterns and ornamentations on the sides of walls as well, and in different colorings, of course. Then you can also see some smaller decorative pieces along with some plants and statues, and looks to be ladders and such. And then we move on to some foliage or trees and some rocks and such. So they are grouped together in the type that they belong to, and all this together you can create that map that we just saw. So all in all, I would say it's a pretty nice pack, especially if you like this specific style and it is congruent with the other things that you're working with in your project. Continuing along, this is the Countryside Windmills and Barns pack. So this pack is a little bit smaller. You can see this is the overview map where we see the different assets. And you can see that you have some different parts. It looks like the details on the windmills is fairly good. And you do have some different objects you can replace to make it look more or less dilapidated and such. But overall, it doesn't seem to have a lot of modularity to it, which makes me believe that you can't really make it look very different based on what I can see here. However, let's take a look at the exploration map of this pack. So here we are in the scene for the pack, and we can see that this is a very nice looking day scene. Feels very holistic and such. But as you can see, we can make out that the different parts that we could see here doesn't allow for a whole lot of variety when it comes to creating different sizes and looks when it comes to either the windmill nor the house. And that is a little bit of a shame, of course, but the quality overall when it comes to the detail of the parts that are available look to be fairly high. The texture sizes for this vary fairly greatly, from 4K down to 256 times 256, and you get approximately a little bit less than 189 different meshes according to the author itself. Next up we have the ScanLab's Interior Volume 1 pack. This one probably falls into the category of architectural visualization, I would say. It looks like all of the different components here, you can see there are a lot of differentiating books. You can see there are a lot of different books here. And the quality when it comes to the textures are some at 2K, some at 4K, and it says that the floor tiling is at 8K. So most likely used for architecture visualization. However, you can probably take some of these assets and make use of in your game for sure. Let's take a look at the complete map for this. So here we are inside of the demo map, and it looks like a very nice scene. It is very small, almost claustrophobic, and you can see that they have put some emphasis on the library and all the books that they have created, because they created so very many. And then you can see the sofas and pillows and some fruits, and also a TV display over here. So overall, the pack is fairly small. It fits together fairly well, but the usage for this might be a little bit limited depending on what you're doing and working on. Next up, we have the dynamic volumetric sky pack. Now, I'm not entirely certain about the amount of use you can get from this pack, considering you have a lot of this already built in with Unreal Engine now, with its volumetric clouds and its lighting. However, the options, the possibility of options is of course never bad. There might be things in this that is more in line with what you want in regards instead of what Unreal offers out of the box. But essentially, this system is supposed to allow you a bunch of different things. It allows you to have a system that changes how your clouds look, the weather with it, day and night cycle, dynamic environments, and has winds and moon phases, it says. So among the things you can see this box here, apparently when we press play it's affected by wind, so it gets pulled around. But the more clear part of this is of course going to be the clouds, and when it comes to that you have this blueprint over here called the dynamic volumetric sky, which has a bunch of different settings on it here where you can tweak the different things you want to do. So you can change where the light is coming from, for example, and time zones and things like that. You can change time and have it either be dynamic or be set depending on your needs and such. I actually never, let's see if we need to unclick the dynamic one to alter some of these effects probably. There we go, we got something else. These values seem to be fairly hard. Okay, there might be a setting that's locking these. I noticed something similar when I was playing around with the weather. When it comes to the weather, you have a bunch of different presets when it comes to the current weather here. You can see we currently have partially cloudy. You can change to clear sky and the clouds go away. You can have overcast and you'll get a very oppressive sky. You can have rain, which is, when it comes to the actual clouds, might be a little bit too over the top, as well as the effect of the water or the rain. It's like we're standing in an ocean all of a sudden. And equally the snow might be a little bit too intense, but this might be depending on your needs, and you can probably tweak this a bunch as well. What you may want to know about is that if we choose something like cloudy maybe, and you need to uncheck the current weather here to be able to affect some of these parameters. So if you wanted to set rain to 1 here, you can see that we essentially end up in an ocean again. Putting this to 0.5, you can see that we still get this effect, which is a little bit too strong in my opinion, but hopefully there's a lot of parameters you can tweak. There seems to be a lot of parameters, but I haven't been able to spend enough time with this to tweak it a lot yet. So there are a lot of configurability available here. I cannot say entirely, which is good of course. You always want to have more options rather than less options. and it has gotten good reviews on the marketplace. So I have to assume that the asset is probably quite good when you get into the nitty-gritty of stuff and tweak things to your needs, essentially. Next up, we have what might be the star of this month. This is the City Environment Megapack Volume 02. And this is, in fact, it seems to be 3 packs into 1. So all by themselves, they're fairly small. The first one we have here is the Favela pack, which is the overview map. So here we can see the different assets. We see this gigantic Jesus statue. We can see some tarps and such things. We can see some weapons. And we also have some very rusty and broken down light posts. We have some speakers. I have no idea what these are. Essentially a bunch of different decorative items that seem to be in a style of an urban suburb, not suburb, but an urban environment, possibly with high crime rates and a little bit of rundown architecture, possibly. Let's take a look at the demo map for this. Going into Favela over here. We can see this is the demo map they have created from it, and you can see we have sort of a soccer-like court here for an urban environment. And let's go into play mode so you can see what it actually looks like in its splendor. So all in all, it looks like a very holistic pack when it comes to the art assets. And by itself it might not be that impressive, but if you take into consideration that that is just one of the packs, the next one is the Middle East. So in this pack you can see that we get a bunch of structures for something that can be used for a Middle Eastern city or small village, possibly. And you can see that they have a lot of detail to them, both when it comes to the walls and small items like laundry and air conditioners and such things. You can see all the modular pieces that we have here. Very small pieces of a lot of different assortment of things, and then the larger pieces which consist of the structure of buildings with their different colorings, styles and shapes, essentially. So this pack, all in all, consists of over 600 different meshes, so it is a very large pack if you consider it as one. Let's go check the whole demo map for the Middle East so you can see the town that's created from it. So here we are inside of the town, and we can see that it has been put together to be a pretty, I wouldn't say nice looking, because this is maybe not a neighborhood you would want to be in if you can help it, of course. And if we zoom out a little bit, you can see the extent of what they have created here. So they have a small little neighborhood created of the different assets. And yeah, it looks like everything belongs, everything fits together. It's a pretty nice looking pack so far. And then over to the last part, which is the Yokohama, which is of course going to be a more Asian style, a almost Japanese style of a pack. And in its splendor, this is what it looks like. So we have this street where we see skyscrapers in the background, which are of course just there for show. They don't actually exist. They are going to be 2D planes. But it sells off the illusion of a Japanese street with possibly high volumes of people, and also a subway station here next to it as well, with the detailing that goes along with that as well. My actor is getting stuck. Let's go to a bit of a bird's view and see what we have here. So here you go. So the illusion is broken. We can see all the silhouettes of 2D structures. And yeah, so all by themselves, they are 3 small packs essentially, with high detail as far as I can tell, and a lot of different meshes. but all put together, it is a pretty large pack overall. Next up, we have the flexible combat system, which seemed to be one of the most promising assets of this month, but instead turned out to be one of the most disappointing. We'll get to that in a moment. Before that, we need to put some focus on this, that this is the flexible combat system basic, which means that there's a non-basic version as well. And you can see that by clicking this image, that this is essentially just a bare bones version or an old version of something that has been approved upon over time. And if we search for flexible combat system, we get to see that we get all of these results. And you can see that out of these 5 here are the ones that are of interest. So the basic one is this one over here. The first problem I have with something like this system over here, and which also applies on this system over here, is that when you buy something like this that's supposed to be a flexible combat system, in this case we get a lot of things. In this system, the basic one, it says that it contains a combat system. It combines a draw and sheath system, a weapon style system, combo attacks, damage multipliers, pop-up combat text, targeting system, line trace hit detection for some reason is mentioned, a leveling system, stamina system, AI system for pathing, and saving loading system, patrolling system, slow motion systems, sneak and stealth systems, and assassination systems. All of this in one, which might sound good, but it gives the possibility of bloat. Let's say that you're only after one of these things, or 2 of these things, or maybe even 3 of these different things. And let's say, now I didn't count how many things were listed here, but let's say there are 10 different systems in here. You want 3 of these systems. You can't get 3 of these systems, you have to pay for all 10 of the systems, which means that you pay a much higher price, because the price is labeled around the whole thing, not partial things. And the problem with that is that if you're wanting something very specific, you get a lot of stuff you don't want, which is even more of a problem when it comes to this one, which is a very, very expensive asset. And only if you wanted everything and if you were happy with the quality of everything would this ever be a good buy. This is better in that case then, that they have been split up into melee, ranged and magic. But as I understand it, all of these also contain all of this bloat around it, which means that this is a little bit problematic in my book when it starts off. Another thing that makes this problematic is that this specific asset handles things and sells something that I'm very familiar with. Every single thing that is available in this system is something that I have made tutorials about, so I have some insight into all of these, and I have also taken a look at how these things are set up in this pack. We'll get a little bit into more detail about that as well later. But essentially, the bloat of this pack is the immediate problem. And now let's take a look at the pack itself. So here we are inside of the demo level for this pack, and we can go into simulate mode here, because this project expects you to have your key inputs set up. So if you're starting a project that doesn't have it, like a blank project like I have in this case, you of course don't have any input mappings. So all of these instructions that are available in this demo map are all going to be misleading in that case, because this is not how it works. They are set up in the blueprints to work like this if you had the basics set up, of course. So anyway, so you basically have these different rooms, and you can see here it goes through some basic controls, and then you can go to a different room over here where it shows how you can use a targeting system that it has. So if that's of interest to you, then this is excellent to look at to diagnose. And also I want to make sure that not everything about this pack is terrible. This pack is great because it has a lot of different areas that it showcases. However, it feels like the pack as a whole is just a bunch of YouTube tutorials that you could get from pretty much any channel and then put together and then sold. There's a feeling of lack of quality. And I wanted to make a distinction here because the presentation of this asset is really good. These rooms and everything like that. And there's a bunch of different videos related to this that sells the pack. And they are all very flashy and edited, which is, for me, the first warning sign. Because when I see something that's very flashy, I tend to scrutinize the content to make sure that the actual essence of it is as good as the flashiness of that. And in this case, it doesn't really hold up. But anyway, proceeding, it is really good for dissecting these different things. So if you're interested in a targeting system, this basic pack is excellent to see how was it done in this way, and then you can possibly improve upon it. And that goes for all of these things. In here you can see different AI styles. So these are characters that you can set up, and they have properties on them in the form of, I believe they have a drop down somewhere that's running an enum saying what kind of, I can't find it. Anyway, so you can like set up their different styles and such and test hitting and blocking. And here you can see assassinations and slow motion kill cams. And each of these rooms have the descriptions of what they do. So everything is presented in a good way or in a flashy way. Here you can see a leveling up system, a damaging system, and all the instructions for that. In this room over here, it shows off your loading and saving. And this room over here, it shows how you set up paths for your AI. And yeah, it's essentially just splines that are going around and such. So presentationally, it's very good. It's very flashy. The contents is a bit bloated and a bit poorly made in my opinion. We can take a look at that as well shortly. So here we are inside of the character blueprint that has most of the logic for this pack, and this is where it comes in where I have been doing tutorials about all of these subjects in the past, so I can look at them and see what I like and what I don't like and such things. And what I can see here is that this character, for example, lacks from a sense of modularity. There are no components created here to contain logic anywhere. Everything is just plopped into the character component, or not the character component, the character blueprint. You can see things like delays all over the place. I'm assuming because he ran into problems with things loaded in a different way and he was getting problems or something like that. It gives me the impression of that he didn't really know in which order things were happening or something like that. So everything is not flowing as it should. And here you can see the inputs that it's expecting but don't actually exist because this is a blank project. And you can see a bunch of weird decisions, like for example here you have the ability to crouch and start crouch, and the values are hard coded here, and it's hard coded here, and it's not even driven by variables so that you can configure it. So despite being called a flexible combat system, it is anything but, because it is really not flexible, but rather a broad or a wide flexible system. It does a lot of things, a lot of very different things all together, but it doesn't do any of them really well or very deeply. There is no flexibility available really. You have to, if you want to learn this, you have to get really deep into the system, and at that point it just makes more sense to create a system yourself if you were after doing that. So this project for me merely serves as a, oh cool, I wanted to do a targeting system, how is it done? And you can delve in and see how it is done, for example, and then learn from it. But I wouldn't say that it's a very competent or useful flexible combat system that you would want to make use of in your project at all, actually. Rather than that, I would see this as a bunch of tutorials put together for you to look at and study, essentially. Here we have the behavior tree, for example. You can see that all the different categories of things here happening are labeled or commented, so you can see what they do. But it's, again, created in a very odd way. It has a selector here which has a service running on it, ticking every 0.15 seconds to make sure that it's running what it's supposed to be doing. It feels to be the opposite of flexible. Instead of creating this into modular pieces which can easily be switched out or in, or have them like flexible in a way where you can like have different parts of the behavior tree executing depending on the AI setup. It's like everything is jammed together and then it just does one of them. I'm not sure if this was intentional and maybe for like visualization, but this seems to be the impression I get from all the code. It lacks a bit of, it's very flashy, but it lacks quality, thought, and flexibility and modularity. Essentially, it's a bunch of tutorials put together. Essentially. Anyway, I hope that this doesn't sound too hard. Like I said, I think this is an excellent project to learn from. If this is supposed to be an appetizer for the complete bundle, then I would highly advise against purchasing that, because it will probably be more of the same. But as a learning experience, like I said, this is good because it has very many different aspects that might be of interest to very many different projects, essentially. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you did not like it, leave a dislike. Leave any suggestions or comments you have down below. Subscribe and share this video if you want to see more like it in the future. That is all for now. Keep on learning. Take care.